Thank you. Welcome to the Film Fan Club Show. I'm Sam Carrico. Man, it was a bit of a somber week last week. Did you guys see this? Bill Maher, the HBO host Bill Maher, caught COVID. Yeah, I know, they had to cancel Friday's taping of Real Time with Bill Maher. I mean, the guy had only made fun of crowd sizes, mask mandates, and other pandemic restrictions. Who could have seen this coming? No, but yeah, weird week last week. The comedian John Mulaney, it was announced that he's divorcing his wife, and then to throw another curveball at us, like less than a week later, he's dating Olivia Munn. You know, I've been doing all these jokes about how celebrities are out of touch recently, you know, but leaving your long-term partner to go be with your hot friend, that's one of the most relatable things I've seen in a while. So Real Time wasn't on. Real life has been pretty entertaining, but I didn't know what to watch on TV last week. So I guess there's this new Star Wars show called The Bad Batch. Did you guys see this? I didn't watch it personally. I wasn't really interested in The Bad Batch because at first I just thought it was a re-release of the sequel trilogy. Talk about big TV news though. The Golden Globes for 2022 were canceled by NBC after a Los Angeles Times piece uncovered corruption and other unethical behavior among the members of the Hollywood Foreign Press. No, between you and me, I hear off the record that the Fox News channel is looking to pick them up next year because that'd be like right up their alley. No, but 87 members of the Hollywood Foreign Press, all on the take, being corrupted by outside influences. I mean, thank God that never happens with anything important, you know, like politics. Lots of shows getting canceled though. Ellen DeGeneres announced last week that her show was ending. Yeah, she stressed that this all has nothing to do with the drama that unfolded with her show over the summer, but then, you know, she spent several minutes attacking her accusers and then saying that they were all really coordinated, and I think she's close there. I mean, the word she was probably looking for was karma. But no, Ellen DeGeneres, she said she's looking for another movie role potentially after her show ends, and I think maybe she could do, you know, one of those Nemo movies, play the fish Dory again, you know, call it Finding Anger Management. Speaking of movies in development though, Knives Out 2 is on its way, and we've been getting all sorts of casting announcements before filming starts in June. Dave Bautista, Edward Norton, and Catherine Hahn, Janelle Monáe all joined the ensemble led by returning star Daniel Craig. Rian Johnson directs this sequel for Netflix, and honestly, I'm all for it, because it just makes the chances of his Star Wars trilogy happening even slimmer. Okay, we've got a great show for you lined up. Later on, we'll be discussing a little bit more of the fallout from the Academy Awards this year. But first, there's a new Sasquatch documentary series on Hulu. I brought on a Bigfoot researcher to bring his expertise to the subject matter. Let's get right to it. Okay, joining us now to discuss the Bigfoot documentary series on Hulu. He is a Bigfoot researcher, the Squatch Ranger on YouTube, and host of the Squatch Ranger Files podcast. Ryan White is with us. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going? I just want to say thank you for inviting me on your program.
To prepare for this Sasquatch Hulu series that I've been watching, I wanted to reach out to somebody who kind of, you know, followed this sort of stuff and particularly close to home. And I found your YouTube channel to be really interesting. So I got to ask, how did you get involved in kind of being a Bigfoot researcher? And especially, what was your inspiration to start this channel that you have?
That's kind of a weird story, I guess, not your typical story. Most people say, you know, they've had a sighting and that's got them into the whole phenomenon. I actually have not had a sighting yet. I want to have a sighting. I'd like to see one for myself. You can't really choose how if you are to have a sighting of a Bigfoot, you don't get to choose how it happens, but my ideal sighting would be in my car, the safety of my vehicle, like a roadside encounter, seeing one cross the road or just kind of hanging out beside the road. My story is when I was about 15, I saw a Bigfoot documentary on the Discovery Channel. It was called Sasquatch Legend Meets Science. And it had Dr. Meldrum on that program. He's very well known in the Bigfoot world with all of his Bigfoot casts. That really got my interest. And then there was another gentleman on that program named Jimmy Chilcutt, and he's an FBI fingerprint expert. And it was his testimony on that program that really piqued my interest. He went into Dr. Meldrum's lab at Idaho State University as a skeptic. He wanted to look at the footprint casts, and because he's a fingerprint expert, and he wanted to kind of say, no, there's nothing to this. But looking at all the casts, he found, you know, a few that had these what are called dermal ridges, and that really got his that got his radar going. Like that was on his radar. Whoa, there's something to this. And you know, he went on there and said, I think there is some kind of unknown primate in North America he went on the program and said that. And I was like, as a teenager, I was like, whoa, this guy works for the FBI and he's coming on national TV and he's saying these kind of remarks. Yeah, this is cool. Eventually, I went to the Honabi Bigfoot conference here in Southeast Oklahoma about 6 years ago, and I hooked up with some guys down there, and the rest is history.
You talk about the biggest, news, and like, for instance, here in Oklahoma, we have a Bigfoot hunting season in the works. So of course, that's the type of news that you talk about on your channel. But then also you have, I think this is really interesting. You have testimonials from people in the area. How did you kind of come up with this format?
Well, when I watched those documentaries on TV, those first ones, the eyewitness accounts, just that really grabbed my attention too. Like really hearing the person themselves telling their story. And anyway, after I went to the Honabi Bigfoot Festival and met up with some Bigfoot guys and made some friends and everything, I went away like, what can I do? I really want to get into this. What kind of skills do I have? What can I do to help in this field? And so I'm kind of a musician on the side or whatever, and I like to record and songs and all that. So I have recording equipment and all that. And I was like, hey, I kind of have a built-in recording studio here at my house. I could record myself giving Bigfoot testimonies from eyewitnesses. I could, collect stories, try to reach out to people, and I could kind of be a narrator. It was from YouTube. I was driving around in my car once, and I heard another YouTube channel. They were just reading Bigfoot stories, kind of in a story format. Well, I wanted to make it a little bit more of a report than a story type thing. So like, I include what county it happened in, try to get the closest year that it happened in. If the eyewitness gives me the exact spot, I will show a Google map on my channel and try to show the exact spot it happened in. Not all eyewitnesses want to include that, and that's fine. They want to keep their spot or their private property, anonymous, and I understand that. But if they are willing to give the spot, if it was just a random roadside encounter, I like to show the audience where it happened and that kind of thing. So just my skills or whatever from recording, and I was a vocal major, so I took classes in pronunciation and talking and singing, and so I thought, well, I could kind of narrate, and that's kind of how I got into the podcasting thing. And over the years, it's kind of progressed, and my channel's growing little by little and all that. And I'm just having a great time with it.
Have you ever been like, okay, that's bullshit, when someone's trying to tell you a story?
You want to, I try to go by the rule of trust, but confirm. Okay. Yeah, there's some stories where, I'm like, I don't know about this. So you want to kind of do as much digging or checking into it as you can. But yeah, there's some stuff, and I want to be open-minded, because I am open-minded about Bigfoot. That's why I'm doing this. So I try to be as open-minded as possible. But there are stories where people get into some stuff that I'm just not quite there yet. I want to take it slow and kind of move along with what science can prove. Before we just say portals and UFOs and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to put those people down, because the Bigfoot world is divided. If you know that or not, there's people, there's the UFO people. They think, Sasquatch have to do with UFOs. There's really? Oh yeah. And there are, sightings of UFOs and then sightings of Bigfoot, like within the same night or something. And so a lot of people just think there's a connection there, and maybe there is. I can't prove that there isn't or is. Yeah. But for me right now, I'm just trying to take it slow, and let's build up with what science can show us and prove. And if we get some kind of scientific evidence of that later, okay, well, I guess that's what's going on there. But then you got the people that they think it's an ape, and there's people that think it's like a Neanderthal, ancient human type thing. They think it's more of a human than ape. So there's a lot of divide in the Bigfoot world.
What is some of the most compelling evidence, obviously, for Bigfoot?
Most compelling evidence? Well, we go back to the tracks, because that is a physical marker, like something left that track. And there is hoaxers, and so hoaxing does go on. But it goes back to like Jeff Meldrum, Dr. Jeff Meldrum. If he looks at a track and he thinks there's something to it, he's one of the leading experts in the Bigfoot field. And if he looks at a track and he thinks it's legitimate, I mean, that really fascinates me. And I mean, that's really good evidence from someone like me. The Patterson-Gimlin film, the most iconic Bigfoot film from 1967, where it shows they coined her name Patty. It's a female Sasquatch. She does have breasts. She does that famous turn. It hasn't been proven to be a hoax yet. A lot of people, don't think it's real. They think it's someone in a costume. I actually did a video a few years ago where I took my costume, which was made in 2000 and whatever 12 or 2013, and my costume doesn't look as good as what they say is a costume in 1967.
Yeah.
My costume, you can tell it's fake. It looks like a costume. The one in 1967, I mean, there's different layers of hair and different lengths of hair, and and where hair might not even be growing, and the breasts. That's a big thing. Like, how did they do why would they think to do breasts? That kind of thing. There's like a muscle movement in the leg. You can see a muscle contracting as it walks. Technology 1967 wasn't available to do that. The best that they compare it to is Planet of the Apes from the 60s, and though Patty looks better than Planet of the Apes, and that was the best they could do back then. So I think the Patterson-Gimlin film, the tracks, just the eyewitness stories, from credible witnesses is evidence. I mean, the people saw it. Eyewitnesses aren't that low IQ. If it's a bear, if it's something else. Now, the only way I would think it is a bear and a misidentification is and bears do stand up and they can walk. I've done a video about this too. They can walk for a ways. I mean, it's not common, but it's possible and it can be done. So if a bear's walking behind some foliage, some trees and stuff like that, and all they're seeing is brown or the color black behind some trees and bushes, and they're just getting excited, oh, it's a Bigfoot, okay, that was a misidentified bear. But if they're saying they're feet away and the skeptics are saying, no, you just saw a bear, can be explained away, it was a bear. I just don't buy it. People aren't that dumb. They know if it's a bear or not. You can tell. Another thing is a lot of people say, well, how come we haven't found a body yet? There's no body, so Bigfoot can't be real. Well, I don't have the statistics or anything in front of me or anything like that, but people come back and say, well, how often do you find a dead carcass of a bear out in the woods? It's not very, very often, if ever. I mean, bears have been found, of course, but what happens is, the animals come and they eat on a dead body or whatever, and it just kind of over time erodes away, and it's gone before a hunter might come through. So I mean,
that's a good point.
There can be reasons to explain it.
Something that this documentary series gets into is the idea that is Bigfoot violent, because there was this 1993, these murders in 1993 in California that was blamed on Sasquatch. What do you know about just the nature of Bigfoot? Is it possible that have there been any, stories that you've heard about Sasquatch being violent, and is that possible?
I have heard stories like that, and here's what some people say to that is, look at human beings. Look at us. We got violent people that, do a crime and go to prison. We got good people that, never commit a crime and don't go to prison, don't go to jail for committing, violent acts. So maybe the Sasquatch are kind of like that. Some are good, some are generally, bad and, aggressive. There's other people that, say, it might be different regions of the United States. I've heard a lot of people say kind of Southeast Louisiana area, they're more aggressive. Some people even say Oklahoma, they're more aggressive. But then in the group that I'm in, and the leader of the group I'm in, we find that they're not aggressive, but every once in a while you'll find a bad apple. But around here, we kind of think they're friendly, and if you give them their space and they'll leave you alone.
And then obviously we're talking about that Bigfoot or Sasquatch documentary series on Hulu. What were your big takeaways from the first episode? I know it kind of goes into just a lot of the people who, you know, study that sort of thing, but what were your takeaways?
First off, I really liked the opening, and they did it throughout that first episode. They used illustrations, kind of cartoon illustrations, and I appreciated that. Maybe not everybody liked that, but that's kind of similar to what I do. Is I just give a single picture of a scene of a Bigfoot, but they actually had a whole illustration, animated illustration going on, the kind of as they were telling the story. You know, they had a cartoon going along to set up the scene. So I thought that was entertaining. I enjoyed that part of it. I thought the story was really interesting about the three people that were supposedly murdered, and he's on this quest to find out about it. And it kind of reminds me of another guy that wrote a series of books called Missing 411. His name's David Paulides. He's wrote this whole series of books, Missing 411. I've never read any of them, but I did hear him on another podcast interview recently, and he goes through and he gives all these missing person reports all over the North America and Canada, United States, Canada, and he breaks it down. It's really interesting. He breaks it down to where, you know, if the canine unit couldn't sniff them out, like they just never got a scent of where this person vanished. They never picked up a scent, or the behavior of the canine, like they were scared. They like started to go off, and then they turned around, came back, and they were like almost like scared. Like you know, he in his interview he said, you know, canines never do that. He's never seen that kind of behavior. He's not saying that everything in his book is Bigfoot related to why they vanished, but that was one possibility. You know, he was saying that there's several maybe possibilities. He also, I didn't know this about him, he was a member of MUFON, which is like a UFO investigation group. So he's a part of that. And so I think he was kind of alluding that maybe UFOs were also maybe a reason for these strange, you know, abductions or missing people's case, but also Bigfoot could have been a possibility. And then there's other possibilities too. He wasn't just saying Bigfoot, but I thought that kind of reminded me of those three missing guys at the cannabis farm, you know, kind of going along with this missing 411. And I was kind of thinking, whoa, I wonder if David Paulides ever, you know, researched into these three guys, you know?
Right.
So I thought that was interesting about it. And I, you know, I'm going to watch more of it because it left me hanging at the very end of that first episode. And I definitely want to get into more.
Like you said, each episode kind of has a good cliffhanger, but it is a little bit also. I was reading an article afterwards. Hulu's Sasquatch documentary leaves out some very important details, and they didn't mention in the documentary that the guy was on mushrooms when he was recounting this encounter that he had. So I felt like it's really well structured. It's a really great narrative, but then I go on afterwards and read stuff like that, and I'm like, I hope that they weren't, you know, I hope it's not too manipulative. Do you find that with some Sasquatch documentaries?
Yeah, a lot of TV shows or whatever, they try to leave you cliffhangers into the commercial break and stuff like that. And I won't mention any particular names on here, but yeah, there's definitely ones where they oh yeah, we saw one, or oh yeah, there's something going on. And one thing that I do appreciate about Finding Bigfoot is because they're not finding it they don't find it, but because the clues or whatever, like a vocalization or a scream or tracks or anything, they don't find that very often on very many episodes. That right there is credibility to me. They're actually out there trying to find it, and it's not happening in every episode. And people get mad like, oh, they never find it, blah blah. And I go out there and I see Bigfoot. Well, you know what? They're not forcing it in the episodes, and I really do appreciate that. So I know it's real, and they really are trying to go out there and find signs. And even if they don't, I'm entertained because I love it that they're just out there looking for it. I like seeing, you know, what state they're in. I like hearing the eyewitness stories in their town hall meetings. So I really do appreciate that about Finding Bigfoot, that they're not finding it every episode because you know, it's just forced in other ones. And like I said, I don't want to mention any by name because I just don't want to do that. But that's interesting. You bring up that article. You said it was the lead investigator was doing mushrooms. Is that what you said?
Quote from him: "My buddy and I had taken a pretty epic psilocybin mushroom trip. We took a really heroic dose. This was going down in the cabin, and I was still coming down from the mushrooms just to add to the surrealism." And I'm like, and they didn't, and the fact that they wouldn't include a detail like that in the documentary series does bother me a little bit.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at is the credibility and the cannabis farming. I don't want to say, they were doing that because they were just trying to talk about the cannabis farming. But I was a little, leery of that. Like that could take away credibility if that's kind of what's going on at these cannabis farms. They were, doing that kind of thing, and then they're seeing Bigfoot.
Where are we, like, in terms of real life confirmation, and what would it take to get there? Like, would it take an outright sighting? Like, are some of these, is it possible that a cast would be compelling enough?
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be a body, like an actual body in the science lab to actually confirm it. The group that I'm in right now, I'm in a group called NOBRO, Native Oklahoma Bigfoot Research Organization, and our head leader, he was involved in a project called the Sasquatch Genome Project. And this is controversial in the Bigfoot world too. I'm not going to lie; it's very controversial. A lot of people don't accept what the findings from this project, but they were working with a Dr. Melba Ketchum, and she actually took samples, supposed Bigfoot Sasquatch samples, and tested a bunch of them in this project. And she found traces of ancient human DNA in these samples. And anyway, she tried to send it around to other labs. Other labs didn't touch it, didn't want to have anything to do with it. Some labs were like, "Hey, what's going on here? What'd you send us?" She tried to get publications in scientific journals. She was kind of shut down there, but she did get something published in what's called ZooBank. And you can Google this, Google ZooBank, and you can Google Homo sapien cognatus. And she actually got that name published from these samples and this DNA that she found from her research and her findings. And Homo sapien cognatus means blood relative. So her findings is Sasquatch is like an ancient man or ancient human. It's a blood relative. It might even be like a hybrid cross between human and maybe primate or another like Neanderthal type creature, hominin. So that's interesting. So that actually did come out, and the world hasn't accepted that. Like I said, it's controversial. Not everybody accepts those findings, but from our perspective, they kind of proved it, but that wasn't enough. So I think it's going to take a body for the whole public to accept this.
That's fascinating to know that it is actually closer to confirmation than or like being accepted as an actual species than I knew, because that's not widely known. Oh my gosh. Ryan White, thank you so much for joining me. You want to let us know, of course, where people can find you online, and of course I hope to have you again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have a Squatch Ranger Facebook page. Go check me out. I have a Squatch Ranger YouTube channel. Please go check it out, and I've had a blast doing this, so thank you.
And finally, if YouTube critic John Campea gets any better at projection, he ought to reconsider working at a movie theater again. Back in the day, I was a big fan of John Campea. I would reliably watch his show AMC Movie Talk and its spin-offs Jedi Council and Schmoes Know. I even have the shirt to prove it. For probably 3 years, I sent in mailbag questions and left positive feedback in the comments. Honestly, his work played a huge role in why I started this channel even to begin with. Lately though, I've become less of a fan of John's because I find his recent takes on movies to be generally bland. It's like the super chat model of his new show incentivizes him to pander for donations, so his opinion just ends up going to the highest bidder. But he had one bad take that particularly stood out to me. The morning after the Academy Awards, John tweeted, quote, "Waking up to read the Oscars winners list. They pretty much got them all right." Got them all right? Now, okay, we've all had our spicy opinions after the Oscars. I shared some of my own on this YouTube channel. But out of 24 categories, to just shrug and say, what they said, feels intellectually lazy to me, especially when you're supposed to be a movie critic. I summarized that sentiment in what I thought was a pretty benign reply, quote, "I agree with the Academy. Thank you, very insightful," end quote. This must have triggered something in John though, because he shortly responded with, quote, "You're right, the stereotypical wah wah wah, I hated the Oscar picks wah, bitching and crying would have been much more insightful. Thanks for your insightful comment." First of all, don't repeat your joke. It's never funny to repeat your joke, unless it's a callback. Secondly, you never addressed my criticism, John. I didn't make baby noises at you. I didn't insult you. I just said that you're not adding any substance to this conversation. And you're still not. I tweet back, quote, "Very brave of you to go against the grain and defer to authority." And he responds again, quote, "Only a mindless sheep predetermines how they react to a situation. If you're not a moron, you look at the results as they happen and decide if you agree with them or not. I happen to agree with the result, for the most part, and said so. Sorry, sheep." Oh, I'm sorry, John. Am I supposed to be the sheep? You didn't make that clear enough when you repeated your joke again. And again with the insults, by the way. It's almost like you're just deflecting from my initial criticism that you're being intellectually lazy. Twitter user Timothy7031 chimes in, saying to John, quote, "It's a bit bizarre that you agree with all of the picks. If genuine, then fair enough. But those are astronomical odds. I wasn't aware that Nomadland was your favorite movie of last year." And I reply to him saying, "John's clearly not a sheep, which is why he agrees with every major award winner." That's where his projection comes in. All I'm saying is that a movie critic, albeit in a YouTube capacity or otherwise, deferring to authority on the best pictures of the year, it's just simply easy and unremarkable. But instead of providing any self-reflection, John would rather gaslight you and say, no, he's not being a sheep, you're the sheep. If you think for yourself, go against the grain and come up with your own favorite movies of the year. But also, by the way, black is white, up is down, and yesterday is tomorrow. Look, John, you can be a shill if you want to, but don't insult my intelligence in doing so. And look, I'm willing to talk about this more if you want to have a good faith conversation on the topic, but something tells me I won't get that unless I contribute a super chat donation. Okay, that's our show. I'd like to thank Ryan White of the Squatch Ranger Files for joining me this week. I was on the most recent episode of the Let's Chat Movies podcast, so check that out if you haven't yet, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you, folks.